The following interview will be hard to digest. You're going to get a peek in someone's life and their hardship from when they were young, and you'll understand and see how they transformed and conquered. So before this starts, I would like to offer a warning. Some of the topics and things that are going to be said will be somewhat disturbing. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. And this is Real Talk.
Thank you for this opportunity, first and foremost. I am a self-healing specialist, and I am devoted to helping trauma survivors who are motivated and ready to commit to their healing using a holistic approach that focuses on mental, physical, and spiritual health to create a legacy of real, lifelong change in all areas of their lives. And the reason why I'm involved in this is because of my own personal experience, which I wrote in my best-selling book, Unlocking Your Ability to Heal. And
Excellent.
I wrote this book. Thank you. I wrote this book because during the winter of 2019, I fell into a deep depression that I thought I had escaped from. I couldn't have been more wrong. I realized that, my children coming into the room, seeing why is mommy laying in bed was not okay. I knew that I needed to be a better mother to my children than mine was to me. So I went on this massive quest. And I think it's really important to note that because people always say, well, what got you started? How did you start? And it's really, I got fed up. I was fed up with life. I was fed up with just hitting those roadblocks. It's like not feeling good and just wondering why everything felt so nuclear. Like, what the heck? I was just seriously fed up with life. And I had already gone through the suicidal, episodes, but I had children now, and I knew that that wasn't the way out. So what am I going to do? I didn't know what that looked like. So I had to research. And what I found were those three words, mind, body, and soul. They stuck out to me. And I was like, okay, mind, body, soul. Well, you know what? Every day I'm going to do something for my mental health. And I had to research because I didn't know how to care for my mental health. Same thing for my physical health, which I know comes in two parts. It's important to focus on your nutrition as well as your fitness because a stagnant body will promote disease. So it's important to move your body. And then the spirituality piece is very important. It's so important to remember that we have to heal our soul. And the reason for that is because our soul is what's exposed to the desires of man, the five senses. So we need to heal that. And then we also have our spirit, which is what gives us that connection to our creator, aka God or the universe, fill in the blank. I was gifted with the experience of muscle testing, which is a way that they could communicate with your subconscious mind. And when I had this done, it was revealed to me that I was born impending doom. So after you hear my story, I think you'll understand why I believe that to be true. So just to give you like a summarized version, my trauma started as far back as I can remember, and I didn't even know that. I grew up in San Antonio. Well, I was actually born in San Antonio, Texas in 1982, grew up in Vegas, and I remember my life, the majority of it at the age of 6, growing up in Las Vegas. My mother was never diagnosed, but I truly believe that she is mentally ill. I experienced sibling bullying, an absent father, not because he wasn't there, but because he was the sole provider. So he worked, he was really good at providing, but he wasn't there for the communication piece, for the, affection piece, for those things that children need to grow up in life. There was no healthy communication amongst both parents, although I was a straight A student. So I was very intelligent. I was a very happy little girl, loved to make friends. So I loved life. 1991, I had another brother that was born. His name is Tony. And then in 1993, when I started 5th grade, we welcomed another little brother. I already had an older brother who's about a year and a half older than me. He and I would get into a lot of fights. I guess they say that, sibling rivalry is a rite of passage, but there's a line that can be crossed where it's considered abuse. He was told too young that my biological father was not his biological father. And in my mind, he did not know how to decipher that information being so young. So naturally, when people are suffering from a lot of pain, they take it out on the person that they're closest to. And that was me. So I experienced a lot of bullying, physical abuse from him and verbal abuse from him. And my mother, being mentally ill, I know I picked up on some of her anxiety and all this other stuff. But again, none of that was diagnosed. This is just my experience. And looking back, I can see it more clear as day. Fifth grade was also the time I started getting bullied, started second guessing myself as a person. And I was starving for a healthy relationship with my mother. Because, as a young girl, you identify with your mother. She's your role model. You look to her to be a woman. Same thing with a little boy. A father figure is very important because it's a role model. So I was starving for that relationship with my mother, and I didn't have it. Come 1994, I started sixth grade. The bullying increased. I ended up fighting a seventh grader. And once I started fighting back, that's when people started to leave me alone. So it's true when they say that, when you fight back, they'll stop. It shouldn't be that way, but that's the way that it worked out in my case. Come 1995, I started seventh grade and I started fighting. I know that I was suffering from issues because by the age of 11, so backing up, by the age of 11, I had already started self-mutilating. And I carved in my arm, "I hate mom." So if that doesn't show you just how much I was starving for that affection and attention and communication with her, I don't know what will. So as I'm going through, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, I was just picking up all of these emotions, all of these painful, traumatic experiences that I did not know how to process healthily. So I started fighting back. I started becoming the bully, if you will. The first time I got into a real fight, I was praised for it. And I think being so young, and naive, I loved it, because as children, we seek that, affirmation. We want our parents to be proud of us. We want them to cheer for us. That's what we want. And I wasn't getting that, but I got it from getting in fights at school from all my classmates, and that was misguided information that I got. Then come around 1995, I went to Texas to visit my family. I'm not sure why this happened, but my mother and father wanted to send us over there to go visit family. They were moving from a new apartment, so I'm not sure, maybe it was to make things easier. But this is when I was incestuously raped by my 23-year-old cousin. And after that happened, I was confused. I suffered tonic immobility, which is when you become paralyzed. It's almost like an animal playing dead. So that would be my go-to when I found myself in situations like this. And I never told anyone because I didn't know what to do about it. Like, it was just, I think I was still in shock that it even happened to begin with. So I asked to go to my father's side of the family and go stay with my grandparents because I was uncomfortable, because this was my mother's side of the family that I was at. Go over there, and then I'm molested by my uncle. So I'm like, what in the world is going on? Like, what is happening? Why are all of a sudden my family members being sexual with me? I was so confused. And I told my cousin who was there, and she told me that maybe we should go tell my mom. So I went and told her, which is my aunt. And in a sense, she kind of got mad at me. And she told me, "Well, you guys shouldn't be staying up late," and da 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 da. It, in a sense, made me feel like it was my fault. So come the next morning, I remember sitting on the couch playing with my little baby cousin and baby babbling with her. And right in front of me was the front door, and my uncle walks in and he looks at me and he goes, "What's the matter with you? You look like you've seen a ghost." And that's when it hit me. I must have looked like I was scared out of my mind because of what's been happening to me. And so I was like, you know what? I need to say something. Even though it was so hard, I told my beloved grandfather who was there. It was so hard for me to tell him this. He didn't know what to do or how to handle that. Brings me in to tell my grandmother, which leads me to have to repeat my story again, which is very uncomfortable to even bring it up to begin with. Then they brought him into the room and I had to repeat it again. So by this time, my version was very watered down. And I was like, "Oh, you were just touching me and stuff." And he reaches over to touch my arm and to apologize. And I'm just like, "Don't touch me," And that was that. So in a sense, it's like both of them got away with it. And nothing to my knowledge was ever done. Mm. Coming back to Vegas, I started eighth grade. And as if you can imagine, I'm been collecting. That's what I've been a collector of painful, traumatic experiences because I had no guidance how to get rid of any of this. So everything that I mentioned up to this point, I'm still carrying it inside me. And in eighth grade, I became even more physical with girls. It was like at every opportunity, if they sat next to my boyfriend, if they wrote him a note, if they did this, if they did that, I used it as an opportunity to take my anger out on them. And it's something that, breaks my heart, even now, even when I was writing my book, because I understand that those girls did not deserve to be hurt by me, because I hurt them pretty bad. They would bleed. I'd put a couple in the hospital, and that wasn't right. It's not something I'm proud of. I even apologized to them in my book, because if any of them ever came across it, I want them to know how sorry I am, because they did not deserve to experience that level of pain from what other people had done to me. And that just goes to show why it's so important to heal, because if you don't heal without realizing it, you take that pain out on other people, and they don't deserve that. This is around the time when I was like 13, 14 years old, and I was sexually active with my boyfriend, probably because of the experiences I had already had. I remember getting into an episode with my mother. We got really angry, jumped out of my window because I was trying to break it and I couldn't break it. And I got more extremely angry, and I made it a point to break my window. Then I was scared. Oh my gosh, my parents are going to come in and who knows what they're going to do. So I would rather jump out my 2-story window. So I jumped out, dangled, and got the courage and jumped off, landed on the ground, almost cut my finger off because the way I landed on the glass, bleeding, go to my boyfriend's house. His dad thinks I'm psychotic. They call my parents. Next thing I know, I'm being admitted into Monte Vista Hospital in Vegas. And I was only there for a couple weeks. My parents came and took me out. Couldn't even tell you why. But I remember being put on Prozac. And again, for whatever reason, I don't know, because my parents weren't very communicative. Things just happened and we were just expected to go along with it. So instead of going home, they sent me to go live with my cousin here in Vegas, or there in Vegas. But that's also when he incestuously raped me. So this kept happening. I want to share a story that is really, really special to me. While I was living with my cousin, I had befriended a next door neighbor who had dabbled in a lot of drugs. And that was something that I acknowledged, being out in the street a lot, because I was always kicked out. I used to wear my bikini as bra and underwear. So that way, if I had to sleep in the jacuzzi to keep warm, I could do that. Would steal a toothbrush, brush my teeth with the sprinkler heads in the water, like literally trying to survive, just wandering. And then sometimes I'd be allowed to live back and forth. So by this time, I have already been experiencing drugs. And this neighbor would give me drugs left and right, alcohol left and right. And because I grew up, you're not allowed to question me. Do what you're told. I'm not allowed to have a voice. I'm supposed to just be a little soldier, obey my parents, do what I'm told, whether I think it's right or wrong. So I think that kind of affected me in a sense, where these grown men were always around me, giving me this pill, this drug, this drink. And I never thought to say, no, thank you. I never thought to say, shouldn't I not be having that? Like, I never said anything like that. I just did what I was told. And that's pretty much what would happen. Then some guy named Pancho, which is his nickname, comes to my cousin's door and asks for me. And he spoke mostly Spanish, which I do not. And he tricked my cousin and said that he was there to pick me up on behalf of the neighbor who I had befriended. I go with him. Turns out he brings me to an apartment that looked like somebody had just moved out. I recognized being in this apartment before. But the last time we were in there, it was furnished. And I remember there being a couple guys in there. There was drugs. There was a lot of money. There were guns. And I remember being scared. I made sure not to stare. I made sure to only speak when spoken to. Like, I had never been in that kind of environment before. But being there again, alone with this guy, and then it was dark, I was hesitant to walk in, but I thought maybe they're trying to hide because the police and, because I knew what they were doing was wrong, drugs, alcohol, like I knew. So I was like, well, maybe they're in the back and, like, I don't know what I was thinking. I walked in. So I walked in, I see nothing's in there. I'm nervous. I'm scared. I asked him for a phone. Back then, they didn't have cell phones. Not everybody had a cell phone. It was always about the pagers. Mm-hmm. And my cousin's wife had bought me a pager. And I remember just wishing, that I could call somebody for help because I knew I was in danger. He leads me to the back room. He rapes me. He lets me go. And when he let me go, I was walking down a linear path towards a cul-de-sac, which is at the end of the cul-de-sac is where my cousin lives. So as I'm walking, I remember I'm holding myself, like I'm consoling myself, and I'm walking, trying not to walk too fast because I don't know if he's watching me from behind. And if I started running, would he come and tackle me? Like I was so scared. I was walking, but not too fast. I was not walking too slow, just making sure that I was able to get out of there safely.
This is a 4-part series, so hit that notification, subscribe, and stay tuned.